For 30 years, Lydia Carter believed her first love had left her without a word. No goodbye. No explanation. No last kiss at the station. Just silence. Then, on the morning of her daughter's engagement party, a letter arrived at Lydia's house. The envelope was old, stained by time, and addressed in handwriting she had tried to forget. Lydia Carter. From Ethan Cole. Her first love. The man who disappeared the night before they were supposed to leave town together. Lydia almost threw the letter away. Then she saw one sentence written on the back. Please don't let your daughter marry into the family that destroyed us. Lydia's hands began to shake. Because her daughter, Emily, was about to marry Grant Whitmore. And 30 years ago, the Whitmore family was the last family Ethan had ever been seen with. Lydia Carter had spent most of her life pretending that some names did not hurt anymore. Ethan Cole was one of them. She had trained herself not to react when someone said Ethan by accident. She had learned to walk past the old train station without slowing down. She had even convinced herself that she no longer remembered the exact color of his eyes. But memory is patient. It waits inside ordinary mornings. And that morning began like any other. Lydia was standing in her kitchen, arranging white roses in a glass vase for her daughter Emily's engagement party. The house smelled like coffee, fresh bread, and the expensive perfume Emily had sprayed before rushing upstairs to get dressed. Emily was 28, bright, beautiful, and convinced she was about to marry the safest man in the world. Grant Whitmore. Polite. Handsome. Successful. From one of the wealthiest families in town. Lydia had tried to like him. She really had. Grant always held doors open. He always called her ma'am. He always brought wine he knew she would never drink. But there was something behind his perfect smile that made Lydia feel as if she were being studied, not welcomed. Still, Emily loved him. And Lydia wanted her daughter to have the kind of love she herself had lost. At 10:17 that morning, the doorbell rang. Lydia wiped her hands on a towel and opened the front door. No one was there. Only a small brown envelope sat on the porch, weighed down by a smooth gray stone. For a moment, she thought it was a party card. Then she saw the handwriting. Her heart stopped before her mind understood why. Lydia Carter. Not Mrs. Carter. Not Mom. Lydia Carter. Only one person had ever written her name that way, with a long curve under the L and a sharp little hook at the end of the R. Ethan. She picked up the envelope slowly. It looked old. Not new old, like something made to seem vintage. Truly old. The paper had yellowed. The edges were soft. There was no stamp. On the back, in darker ink, someone had written, "Please don't let your daughter marry into the family that destroyed us." Lydia stepped back into the house and closed the door. The roses on the counter suddenly looked too white. Too cheerful. Too innocent. 30 years ago, Ethan Cole had been the boy her father hated and the only person who ever made Lydia feel brave. He worked at a small mechanic's shop near the river. He had grease on his hands, music in his truck, and a laugh that made even bad days feel temporary. Lydia was 24 then. Ethan was 26. They had planned to leave town together on a Friday night. Ethan had bought 2 train tickets to Seattle. Lydia had packed one suitcase and hidden it behind the shed. They were going to start over. Not because life would be easy, but because it would finally be theirs. But Ethan never came. Lydia waited at the station until sunrise. At 6:20 in the morning, her father arrived with her older brother. He told her Ethan had been seen leaving town with money stolen from the Whitmore estate. He said Ethan had always been trouble. He said men like Ethan loved the idea of running more than the woman waiting for them. Lydia refused to believe it. For weeks she searched. For months she asked questions. Then the Whitmore family lawyer visited her father. After that, no one would speak Ethan's name. And eventually, Lydia learned what women often learn when everyone around them agrees on the same lie. She learned to doubt herself. Years passed. She married a kind man who died too young. She raised Emily alone. She built a quiet life around work, motherhood, and old grief. But she never forgot the train station. She never forgot the boy who promised to come. Now his letter lay in her hands. "Mom?" Emily called from upstairs. "Did the flowers come?" Lydia shoved the envelope into the pocket of her sweater. "Yes," she answered, though her voice did not sound like her own. Emily came down the stairs in a soft blue dress, smiling the way only a woman in love can smile. "Grant just texted," she said. "His parents are coming early." Lydia looked at her daughter. Her beautiful daughter. Her trusting daughter. Her daughter who had no idea that the name Whitmore had once stood at the edge of her mother's worst memory. Emily frowned. "Mom, are you okay?" Lydia touched the envelope through her sweater. "I need to read something first." Emily smiled, distracted. "Can it wait?" Lydia looked toward the window. A black car had just pulled up outside. Grant Whitmore stepped out, followed by his father, Richard Whitmore. Older now. Silver-haired. Still elegant. Still powerful. And the moment Richard saw Lydia through the window, his smile disappeared. That was when Lydia knew. The letter was not the beginning of the story. It was the part someone had failed to bury. Lydia locked herself in the downstairs bathroom and opened the letter with shaking hands. For a few seconds she could only stare at the first line. "My Lydia. If this letter finds you late, then I failed you twice." The words blurred. She sat on the edge of the bathtub and forced herself to keep reading. "I did not leave you at the station. I was on my way there. I had the tickets in my pocket. I had your blue scarf in my truck because you always forgot it when you were nervous. I was 2 miles from the station when Richard Whitmore's men stopped me." Lydia covered her mouth. Outside the bathroom door, she could hear voices in the living room. Emily laughing. Grant greeting guests. Glasses being placed on tables. A party was starting in her house while the past quietly opened like a wound. She read on. "They told me your father had changed his mind. They said if I took you away, your family would lose everything. I didn't believe them. Then Richard showed me papers with your father's signature. Debt. Loans. Favors. Your family was tied to the Whitmores in ways you never knew." Lydia remembered her father's silence after Ethan vanished. The way he avoided her eyes. The way he aged 10 years in one summer. The letter continued. "Richard told me I had 2 choices. Leave town and never contact you, or stay and watch them destroy your father, your brother, and you. I still refused. Then they showed me the police report they were ready to file." Lydia's breath became shallow. A report accusing Ethan of stealing from the Whitmore estate. A lie. A clean lie, because rich people knew how to make paper sound more honest than a human heart. Ethan had written, "I thought if I disappeared you would be safe. I thought I could come back when things calmed down. But they followed me. Every town. Every job. Every letter I sent came back opened or disappeared. I tried for years, Lydia. I need you to know that. I tried." Lydia pressed the letter against her chest. For 30 years she had believed Ethan chose silence. But silence had been chosen for him. A knock came at the bathroom door. "Mom?" It was Emily. Lydia wiped her face quickly. "Just a minute. Everyone is here. Grant's dad asked where you were." Of course he did. Lydia folded the first page and opened the second. This one was newer. The handwriting was weaker. "I found out 3 weeks ago that your daughter is engaged to Grant Whitmore. I don't know if Grant is like his father. Maybe he is innocent. Maybe he knows nothing. But I could not stay silent and let another woman in your family walk into that house without knowing what it cost the last one." At the bottom of the page, Ethan had written a phone number and one final sentence. "Ask Richard what happened in the hunting cabin the night I disappeared." Lydia went still. The hunting cabin. She remembered that place. Everyone in town did. The Whitmores owned a cabin in the hills, a beautiful stone house where they hosted business partners, judges, and men who made decisions behind closed doors. The night Ethan vanished, there had been a fire near that property. A small one, quickly hidden from newspapers. Lydia only knew because her brother had come home smelling like smoke and would not tell her why. She opened the bathroom door. Emily stood there, concern on her face. "Mom, you're scaring me." Lydia took her daughter's hand. "Emily, before this party goes any further, I need you to listen to me." Emily glanced toward the living room. "Is this about Grant?" "It's about his family." Emily's expression changed. "Mom, please don't do this today. I wish I didn't have to. You barely know them." Lydia looked at the letter. "No," she whispered. "I think I know them better than anyone." They walked into the living room together. The engagement party had become bright and polished. People held champagne. White flowers covered every table. Grant stood near the fireplace, smiling at guests. Richard Whitmore stood beside him. When he saw the letter in Lydia's hand, his face turned cold. Not surprised. Cold. Lydia crossed the room. "Richard," she said. The room quieted. He smiled for the guests. "Lydia. How lovely to see you." She lifted the letter. "Do you remember Ethan Cole?" Grant's smile faded. Emily whispered, "Mom." Richard looked around at the guests, then back at Lydia. "This is not the time." Lydia felt a strange calm enter her body. For 30 years, powerful men had chosen the time, the place, and the story. Not anymore. "You're right," she said. Then she turned to her daughter. "It should have been 30 years ago." The room went silent. The music still played softly, but now it sounded wrong. Too happy for a room full of people staring at a secret. Lydia stood in the middle of her living room, holding Ethan's letter. Emily stood beside Grant, her engagement ring shining under the lights. Richard Whitmore smiled like a man trying to keep control. "Lydia," he said, "this is not the place for old pain." Lydia looked at him. "For 30 years, men like you chose the place, the time, and the story. Not anymore." Grant stepped forward. "Mrs. Carter, whatever happened years ago, Emily and I had nothing to do with it." Lydia turned to him. "Did you know Ethan Cole's name before today?" Grant froze. Only for 1 second. But Emily saw it. "Grant?" she whispered. He looked at his father before answering. "I heard the name once," he said. "That's all." Lydia opened the letter again. "Ethan wrote that your father forced him out of town. He said my family was threatened. He said every letter he sent to me disappeared." Richard's voice became cold. "Ethan was trouble. He had nothing to offer you." Lydia's eyes filled with tears. "He offered me the truth. That was more than your family ever gave me." Richard looked around the room. "You were young. You would have ruined your life." "No," Lydia said. "You stole my choice and called it protection." Grant stared at his father. "Tell me this isn't true." Richard said nothing. That silence was the answer. Emily slowly stepped away from Grant. "You knew there was something," she said. Grant reached for her hand. "I didn't know all of it. But you knew enough to stay quiet." He looked desperate now. "I was afraid to lose you." Emily looked at him sadly. "That's exactly what men say when they choose silence over love." Then Lydia's phone rang. Everyone turned. Unknown number. Her hand trembled as she answered. "Hello?" For a moment, there was only breathing. Then a man's voice spoke. Older. Quiet. But still familiar. "Lydia?" Her whole body froze. "Ethan," she whispered. Emily covered her mouth. Richard looked away. Ethan's voice shook. "Did you get my letter?" "Yes." "I'm sorry it came so late." Lydia closed her eyes. 30 years of pain rose inside her. The train station. The rain. The waiting. The years of believing she had not been worth a goodbye. But this time, the pain did not break her. It gave her strength. "No," she said softly. "It came before my daughter made the same mistake." Grant looked at Emily. "Please don't do this because of my father." Emily stared at him. "I'm not. I'm doing it because you learned from him." Then she removed her engagement ring. She did not throw it. She did not scream. She simply placed it on the table between them. I need a love that tells the truth before it has no other choice. Grant's face broke. Maybe he loved her. Maybe he wanted to be different from his family. But love that waits until it is caught is not enough. One by one, the guests left. No one knew what to say, so they carried their coats, their flowers, and their shame out the door. When the house was empty, Emily sat beside Lydia on the couch. The roses were still on the table. The champagne had gone warm. A beautiful engagement party had become the place where two women got their lives back. Are you going to see him? Emily asked. Lydia looked at Ethan's letter. I don't know. Do you still love him? Lydia wiped her tears. I love who we were. I love that he tried. But I don't know who we are now. Emily rested her head on her mother's shoulder. What happens next? Lydia looked at the ring on the table. Next, we stop letting other people choose our lives. 3 weeks later, Lydia went to the old train station. Not because Ethan asked her to. Because she wanted to stand there once without waiting. The platform looked smaller now. The benches were new. The old sign had been repainted. Then the evening train arrived. People stepped off. Families hugged. Strangers passed with suitcases. And then she saw him. Ethan Cole. Older now. Silver in his hair. A cane in one hand. And in the other, a folded blue scarf. Her scarf. The one she had left in his truck 30 years ago. Either of them ran. Some endings are too old to rush. Ethan lifted the scarf slightly. I kept it, he said. Lydia smiled through tears. I kept the hurt. He nodded. I know. For a long moment, they stood across from each other with 30 years between them. Then Ethan asked, Can I tell you everything? Lydia took the scarf from his hand. Yes, she said. But this time, start from the beginning. Because sometimes love does not return to erase the years. Sometimes it returns to give back the truth. And when the truth finally arrives, even late, it can still open the door to a life that belongs to you.